just came back from a search.
Welcome to the Career Guidance episode in the ASEI Getting Ready with Engineering series. In view of the ongoing conditions, as you know, ASEI has made all events virtual for 2020. And the bright side is that members from any chapter can now attend any event freely. For those who are new to ASEI, let me inform that ASEI, American Society of Engineers of Indian Origin, was formed in 1983 in Michigan, and it's a not-for-profit organization with a mission for fostering science and technology and to create a community of like-minded engineers and scientists amongst the Indian diaspora. With 5 active chapters who organize events in local geographies typically, I represent the nascent Silicon Valley chapter, which I've been leading for the last few years, and we focused primarily on STEM initiatives and give back to underprivileged in the community. Now, today's topic is very near and dear to my heart. Prior to being a startup in the startup ecosystem, in my corporate career spanning more than 2 decades, I have interacted with over 10,000 engineers and engineering professionals and managers, and the only common thing that I've found is they all want to know the secret sauce of career progression. Background, there's a story I would like to tell you. This is the story of how an intern became the CEO of a $12 billion company. The story is of Horatio Rosansky, who rose from the intern position to the CEO position at Booz Allen Hamilton. It's a consulting powerhouse, just by sticking to his values and doing the right thing. Once, after making a big mistake early in his career at Booz Allen, he went to the then CEO of the company to resign. And instead of losing his job, he made a connection with a lifelong mentor. So with that background, I think we'll learn a lot in today's session about mentoring and the career progression. So in today's episode, we have 3 speakers who happen to be women, representing 3 distinct stages of career. Shreya, who's a millennial with about 4 years of experience. Sukrutha is the senior manager with more than 13 years on the board. And another one celebrating almost 25 years in the industry, in engineering as well as leadership positions in the executive position, my friend Surbhi Kaul. All of them are pretty active in the community building and know the value of mentoring. And best of all, they have started their careers with entry-level internships. So now I believe the power of youth has great things and hopes to show us in the future. And with the energy that youth displays, I think I should give the control to starting from the youngest in the group here. And I'll get out of the way and let these 3 dynamic women engineers have a conversation amongst themselves on the career progression and experiences and aspirations. So the logistics is that you have to enter your questions via the poll and via the chat channel. And we'll pick up those questions towards the end. But there are certain questions that Shreya, Sukrutha, and Surbhi will go through. But before I hand over to the speakers, let me launch a poll very quickly. Please use your mouse and answer this question. There are 4 questions. We want to understand you, and please enter. And once you have done, I'll give you 30 seconds. And then once we know a little bit about you, and if you are looking for an internship, are you a member? And if you are, why are you here today? So I have answers from 50% of you. And all right, I wish I could hold on for more, but I will end the poll here and share the results. So 50% are students, and of course, they want to network and they can help. All right, I'll stop sharing here, but there is a deck that I want to present as well. So give me a second while I bring it up. All right, while the deck comes up, let me hand over the control to Shreya to introduce herself, and we'll go from there. All right, Shreya, you're on.
All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today on a Saturday. My name is Shreya Malik. I'll go through a quick introduction about my progression. Let's let the slides settle down. All right, so as was mentioned, I have about 4 years of software engineering experience. They are all in California. I currently reside in San Diego, California, where I work at Humana. A quick progression, I guess, since we are talking about internships, I've done 5 professional internships in the past several summers while I was an undergrad. I then turned those internships into my full-time career at Humana in 2017. And in 2020, this year, I actually launched at Code with Shreya, which if you check out codewithshreya.com or if you check out the Instagram platform, you'll see that it's a way that I've used to connect with people and provide tools, tips, tricks of the trade. Another fun part of 2020 was earning an engineering promotion, which kind of solidified that engineering experience. If Sukrutha, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, so in 2006, I moved from LA to, from India to LA for grad school at USC. And while I was there, we had the opportunity to intern for the summer. And I got a summer internship at Cisco Systems. At that time, they you were really trying to seek out young graduates to, shake up their workforce. That was an amazing opportunity because you got to pick which team you could work with as an intern and then interview teams to choose which team you would end up for a full-time job. I ended up not working at Cisco for a full-time opportunity and instead worked at what was then an acquisition of Citrix. And I worked on the product of GoToMeeting. In 2015, between 2008 and 2015, I had since changed jobs. And that was when I made the transition from engineer to manager. In parallel, I had also started an engineering organization for women in tech with the attempt to encourage women to get into and stay in tech and solve the pipeline problem. And in 2018, we hit a landmark when we completed 10 years and we started to expand beyond dinners. Networking dinners, and we started to do podcasts and virtual conferences. So that's my journey. Over to you, Surbhi.
Hello, everyone. As Piyush mentioned earlier, I guess I'm the senior most. He dated me. I'm the oldest here. So my journey began in the 90s. I finished my undergrad from IIT Kanpur and came to the US to do my master's. I did not have much experience interning myself, but I was working while doing my master's here and supporting myself. And then my first job ever was in Bay Area at HP, working as a network engineer. And so for the last 25 years, I have, progressed my career through various opportunities, various startups. Spent the last 10 years, which is like the big chunk of my career at Google. And at Google, as well as prior to that at Cisco, when I was at Cisco, I had the opportunity to work with a lot of interns, right? And interviewing them, working with them, figuring out how we can make the intern efforts meaningful in those companies. And it's like a dating process where you are not only assessing the intern, you're also making it an interesting time for them, so they'd be interested in opportunities to come back to the company. So the investment is kind of, there's a return on that. And other than that, I have, if I look at my, outside of work efforts, I lead the Women in Product chapter for the Bay Area. I have been in product management for a long time. And I also am very active in IIT Alumni Association, leading the AI ML Forum and doing many other like nonprofit efforts to help younger generation who are coming into the Bay Area learn about how to do startups, how to use AI/ML in their products as well as their thought and things like that. So happy to be here and talk to you all.
So before we get into the meat of the questions, let me start with an initial icebreaker question. So we talk a lot about making adjustments for a lot of the negative things that kind of COVID brought to our lives, and there's no doubt that it probably did. But in this round, I want to hear maybe a silver lining in your life that has come out of the past 6 months. So for me personally, with the whole work from home, not being able to do things that we're able to do, I got to take some time to really think about my priorities and direction and impact, which ended up leading me to launch Code with Shreya and to be able to connect with thousands of different people that I would never have been able to otherwise. So I'd love to hear from you guys as well.
Go ahead, Sukrutha.
Yeah, with me, I have a 1-year-old. So interestingly, I just started to go back to work and put her in daycare, and we had to pull her out and had to work from home. While that's been crazy, it's also, I don't miss those milestones. The other thing is, my husband and I have never seen each other at work. So to see what it's like, it's very impressive. And to see what it's like him at his, in his working zone. So I think it's been really difficult to like not be able to go out too much, but we've discovered some hiking trails that are not too far away, and so we do a lot of that. Unfortunately, I'm a swimmer and I can't swim, but this is forcing me to actually be on land. So yeah. Surbhi, how are you? I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
I think, to be honest, I really enjoy going to work, so I miss it immensely. But there is a silver lining, like you said. I have been able to focus more on myself, right? I always wanted to do yoga on a regular basis, and I could never make time. So now that I don't have to commute, I'm able to do a little bit of that. I'm definitely taking care of my eating much better because there is no work dinners, there is no eating, lunch at work with people, so I can eat healthier. So I'm looking at all those very, very, personal improvements that I have been able to incorporate because of this.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, you guys.
I do have to say one tidbit is I don't have to like iron my clothes and like, I'm like, wearing tracks sometimes. So
This hour and commute that's saved. Awesome. Let me start out with the internship stage of our career as we start our discussion here. How can one position themselves as a stellar internship candidate? Just when they're starting out, if they're applying for your team, what do you look for?
So I can take that first because lately I've spent a lot of time doing that. Earlier this year, we were assessing, which interns to bring on board and had conversations with several of them. And I think one of the very important things that I look for is for people or candidates who have the desire to learn. So not necessarily coursework. However, that relevance of that is important too. For example, now that I'm at Juniper, I would, be interested in candidates who have some basic networking understanding, maybe have taken some basic courses. However, the most important to me is the desire to learn and the ability to communicate well, right? Because even if they do a very small chunk of the work, if they're not able to communicate and articulate what they have achieved in that short period of time, it would be very hard for the team to do something beyond after they have left or something like that. Say desire to learn and communication skills would be the most important thing I look for.
I mean, I think I was at the cusp of when things started to change, where before we were, as an intern, you were seeking out companies and you were trying to impress everybody. Now it feels like it, goes both ways. It's like, the in-laws have to impress the son-in-law and daughter-in-law just as much, right? Like, so the companies are bending backwards, trying to be attractive to young talent. Um, so I think it works both ways. I do want to say though, you want to have that profile that stands out. There's like several hundreds and thousands of people graduating with a similar degree as yours. So what is it that you think you can, invest time in that will then position you to be unique on your resume? Because a lot of times people are just looking on paper or digitally, doing a word search, and you may not have the access as other people might have to get your resume into the company. So you want to make sure you come across as unique as possible, where you are showing leadership skills and initiative, and that you haven't just done what was given to you. So you've done more. So I
I
think those
really
are the
agree.
things I look for. Yeah.
Really agree with that, both Surbhi and Sukrutha. That's very true. It's a great point you bring up. There are thousands of applicants for a lot of these positions. So, and along with being able to talk about your communication skills, the uniqueness is also just as important. And we don't always see that. So that's a great thing to look out for. Let's talk about maximizing this internship experience, right? So what can a candidate, once they've done this internship, what can they do to get a return offer? What can they do during their time at their companies to obtain a return offer, should that be something that the company is offering? And if you do manage to secure this, I know Sukrutha and I, we've made different decisions on the decision to accept it or not to accept the return offer.
So in my mind, like I was saying earlier, I think it's important that whatever work the interns do, they make an effort to communicate that well at the end, maybe do a demo or a presentation and leave an impact at the end. So the company feels that the investment they made in you, because there's, to be honest, there is a lack of background and knowledge about the company to come and be able to pick it up in the few months and be able to do something really impactful. However, whatever little is done, if you can share it in a very clean, clear manner, and to be able to show that whatever impact you had would be very immensely useful. And sometimes I have interns who come and then after the end they'll just submit something and leave. And then there are people I've seen, interns, who make an effort to corral teams to share what they did, and that leaves such a positive taste in everybody's mouth that, okay, this is the person, if they applied or if they came, I would remember, right, that they did something that really helped the company or had the company start thinking across some problem that could be meaningful. So I think that would be one, is to make sure that you have something at the end of your term at a company. The other would be collaborative spirit, right? When you're working, be very collaborative. Go in with the attitude of learning, not with the attitude of, I'm here to do this, my work, and that's it. Think of, could I use this time to learn? Could I use this time to ask meaningful questions? And even, question the status quo of something that might be. I really appreciate individuals who will question things and not just, go with the flow. This is the bit I have to do and that's it. Just, be okay, be a little daredevil and question and ask. And it's okay to ask questions that may not end in, a good answer, or sometimes you might be, told that, this is the easiest way. You may not have all the background, but feel free to ask questions. Be a little brave and bold and go there, even if it's uncomfortable.
That's very true, because in an internship setting, there's almost no real consequence if you ask a poor question. Not that that really exists at that level either. No one has any expectations of you, of the domain knowledge or anything like that. So you may bring up a very good point there. Sukrutha, do you have anything to add?
I think just one other thing is like really connecting with other roles, because I think when we are in college, we only know of certain types of roles. So to actually see them in action, like I would have one-on-ones with UX designers, UX researchers, just to kind of see, because I like to draw, I'm creative. So I actually wanted to see if that's a job I would want. Ultimately, I also connected with a lot of PMs who I still stay in touch with, just to see again, like, is this going to be my path going forward? If yes, what is it that I need to do to get there? It was very monolithic at that point when I was interning, where, like I said, I was at the cusp. Everybody would just end up doing similar projects. So I was looking for things to do on the side that would enhance my experience. And they didn't have organized internship programs back then for even the bigger companies. So I would say, go beyond what's there and try to see what other roles exist.
Okay, and so you started going into it, but do you want to go into a little bit of why you did not choose to continue after your internship at Cisco?
Yeah, so there were a variety of reasons, but the main one was that I felt like, my interest shifted. I at that time thought I was my be all and end all was working in a company that, was this sort of networking, computer networking situation. And then I wanted to go more software. So even with my degree, I did a double E degree, but I stayed away from the hardware side. It was more the programming side of things. And so I wanted to go into more software, because that started to interest me more. It's interesting, sometimes when you're studying something that's very fascinating to you, but when you actually have to do the job in that field, that may not be as interesting to you. So that one-to-one mapping actually sometimes doesn't exist. So that's why I had to take a few steps back to take that one big step forward. And that's what I had to do.
Understood. Okay. So with my personal experience with internships, I definitely agree with connect with as many people as you can. And I think Surbhi and Sukrutha, you both touched on this about connecting with different people outside of your roles, really showcasing your skills, showcasing your impact to as many people as you can. Those are huge ones. And for me personally, my decision to stay at Humana was kind of inspired by the fact that at that point, that was my 5th internship. So I had experience at least seeing how things worked at 4 different companies prior to that. So I was kind of able to see, like, do people respect each other here? Do people, are certain priorities checked off at this job? And the answer was yes. There's room to grow. There's support from a higher level. People asking about my goals and making them happen, if I'm the one to initiate that. A lot of support for pretty much anything that may or may not be needed career-wise. And that was kind of my motivator to accept that return offer. And thus far, I'm very happy with that decision. And I'm really happy to hear about your experiences about that. So continuing on just a little bit more on internships, knowing what you know and having experienced internships and a couple of jobs as well, what's one piece of advice that you would give your younger self in choosing a branch of study? So I know all 3 of us are from different branches of engineering, so I guess we could kind of touch on that.
That's an excellent question, because there's so many things I could go and tell my younger self. But I things that I touched upon earlier is important to me is not be afraid. I think when we are younger and we are straight out of college, we feel like everybody in the rooms knows so much more than we do, and we tend to stay quiet. And the advice I would give my younger self is, like, if you feel like you have a question or a point you want to make it. It's okay. And when you're fresh out of college and younger, actually, that's the best time. Because like you said, Shreya, the expectation, the bar is lower, that you can get away with things. It's okay. It's okay to ask questions that you may not know the answer of, and maybe others do. And sometimes nobody in the room will. And you will leave people pondering that, oh, that's a really great question, we did not think about it, but that makes sense. Simple things like, if something is being done in my HP, everything you like had to make one, which is like a little bit of firewall, right? One ACL change would take 7 meetings, and I would not question that. And then from HP, I happened to go to Cisco. And this was in the 90s when Cisco is a very fast moving company where I would get a device on my desk and I was told that, finish configuring it and ship it out by end of day. And I'm like, but what about the 7 meetings? Like, who's going to approve this? So suddenly I went from that a lot of red tape kind of leadership to very much, it's your responsibility. And in hindsight, I thought that at HP, I should have questioned that. Why are we spending so much time to make small changes and small iterations? And on Cisco, it was the complete opposite end of the spectrum. So my advice would be ask questions, don't be afraid, and be okay to make mistakes and ask, questions that to others may be very basic, but to you would, be a big improvement in your life. Sukrutha, over to you.
Yeah, I'm thinking about I think, I don't know if I would tell my younger self to study anything different. I think I definitely would encourage my younger self to do a lot of the things that I did a little bit earlier. Like always, I think the challenge is that I grew up in India and a majority of my education happened there, where, you're given something and you just do that and you do that very well, and it stops there. This all-rounder concept, even though I grew up doing competitive swimming, it wasn't valued or wasn't encouraged. And I think that's what makes me feel bad that there was a period of time when I quit swimming. I think it was board exams, 10th grade, I gave that up. So there was a period of time where I didn't do anything besides my school, like college studies. And that's something I really do regret, but I did turn it around. And once I graduated from USC, I did do a lot. Even when I was at USC, actually, I was a board member of the Society of Women Engineers chapter there. I wish I'd done a lot of these things earlier. I do have some level of an entrepreneurial spirit, and I wish I had, really acted on it, because I had so many ideas.
You still can. You
Right.
take
So
those
I'm doing it
ideas.
now. I'm doing it all now. I just feel like those 5 years, I wish I had really done it.
Yeah.
That's awesome to hear. Thank you guys for sharing your stories about that. Let me shift the topic a little bit to talk kind of about mentorship. That comes up pretty much throughout our careers, and personally, I believe that it's important to start with finding mentors as early as possible in the game. I'd like to hear your experiences, how to find a strong mentor or someone to champion for yourself, how to be a good mentor yourself.
So I think early on in my career, and that's good you brought this up, the question of mentor and mentee. I think it's a really, really phenomenal and useful concept. That would be the other thing I would advise my younger self, is to get a mentor early on in my career, which I did not do. I just happened to stumble upon some good mentors when I was at Google. And if I look at my journey before that, I zigzagged a lot as I was trying to figure out, what is the right place for me? What is the right fit? What do I want to do? And it was only at Google that I realized my passion for product management is very strong through the help of mentors. So, and also now that I'm on the other side and I mentor a lot of younger women and younger engineers, I feel that there are people who are very interested in sharing what they have learned and accumulated the wisdom of how to create a good, clear path to where you want to get. And so we hesitate initially. We feel that, if I go and ask for somebody, I'm taking up their time. Should I be doing that? But the fact is that it's a very, it's a two-way street. Not only are you as a younger person entering the workforce, are you learning from somebody, you're giving them an opportunity to give back. And people look for those and people appreciate that. I really enjoy it when younger women come up to me and have questions and want to figure out, what they should be doing, should they figure out what is their passion. So I think it's a amazing thing for people to very early on figure out who they can go and ask for. And you may not find the best fit the very first time. Just like a job, you may go to several people till you find the right fit that works for you and the right fit for you coming from the other side as well. And I mentor a lot of people, and I feel that There are times when you have a very good chemistry, a very good communication and gelling of ideas and thoughts. And then, so do it absolutely. If you're starting in your career journey, go find mentors. Even at my point in a career, I look for mentors along with menteeing people. I look for good mentors and also champions in the organization. Yeah.
Awesome. Sukrutha, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I actually look at it slightly differently. I have unknowingly, created this concept of my personal board of advisors. And when you're younger, it's like your parents, your teachers and stuff. So I think along the way, I wish I had been a little bit more deliberate about it. So my recommendation is, you're always going to get something different from different people. So be very clear on what that is. Be very, very mindful of everybody else's time. See what you can give back to that person or to someone different. I feel like I became a better mentee when I started to mentor myself. So those are the sort of things that I evaluate. Sometimes the mentors I had 2 years ago, I don't need as much help right now. And also the way I would recommend to approach whether or not someone would be a mentor is, I don't think it's most effective when you just walk up to somebody and say, I'd like you to mentor me. But, lead with, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'd like to do. And I think this is where your experience will help me. Is this something that I can get from you as we talk through once a month or, on a frequent basis? The other tip I want to give is that whether or not someone's actively mentoring you right now, continue to give updates to people on how things are going in your life. People love to see successes of those that they have helped, whether recently or a while ago. So stay in touch that way.
Both of you have given excellent different feedback on this topic, and I really appreciate that. I'm learning from you guys as you're speaking as well. I think the main thing I want to add as someone who's doing both mentoring and menteeing at this stage is I think there's a lot of people that don't understand the definition of being a mentee. So one important thing is that when you are a mentee, like you said, Sokha, that's to give a lot of updates or give periodic updates. And it is a two-way street at the end of the day. The mentor can really only help as much as the mentee is willing to put in. If the mentee is not so great about following up, if the mentee is not so great about even checking in, really, there's only so much that the mentor can do. So those expectations really need to be established early on. And I believe that that's an important part of it. Let's talk about creating value. So how can we create opportunities for ourselves when there's no clear charted path ahead? I'd love to hear both Sukrutha and Surbhi's opinions on this as well.
You're muted, Surbhi.
Sorry about that. I was saying that that's such a wonderful question because I feel that in every role and every job, no matter how clear a role is when you join a company, it's always useful to think of other things, other interesting things that you can own. Like I think Sukrutha was saying earlier, how do you differentiate yourself, right? And that is one way of differentiating yourself no matter where you are. So you always look for initiatives outside of the core definition of your role to, build upon your own journey as well as, give a little, something back to the company or to the organization that you are supporting. And the way you can do that, it doesn't have to be the core aspect of the company. Like, for example, at Juniper, it's all about networking, right? That's the product. But if I look at how I can do something more meaningful along the lines of maybe mentoring younger women or thinking about diversity or thinking about personal coaching, career guidance. So there are a lot of things that you can pick up along the way to help the organization as well as differentiate yourself and build upon your own career as well. So that would be one thing I would say, that always look for opportunities or little things that you can add value, not necessarily like take on bigger projects like, okay, how can I own a bigger chunk of the company's organizational values, but more, little bits also add a lot of meaning and a lot of help.
Those are great tips, Surbhi. I'd like to, add to that because I agree with all of that. For me, the tip I typically give and I do for myself is in situations like this, because this is going to happen as you get more and more senior, that no one really tells you what to do. You need to find the problem and you need to figure out how to solve it before someone else does, right? So I think the main thing that I do in that, if it's a brand new situation, and in brand new role, what I do is I see what is it that I want to be known for. When I, for example, moved from engineer to manager, I decided I need to know what is it that I need to be known for. And then I ended up spending time on all these additional efforts that would help, craft the story that I'm great at execution, especially if it's an ambiguous problem. So I think those are the sort of things maybe to think about when you don't have, clarity in exactly what your deliverables are.
Right. Definitely agreed. And again, thank you for sharing your experiences there. Let's talk a little bit about, well, I have an audience question that comes right in. So as we're going into talking about our early career stages and maybe going upwards through the ladder a little bit, we have an audience question regarding transitioning from engineering role to product management or program management role. So what do you guys say would be a good approach for this transition?
So one of the things that I really enjoyed about working at Google is that they give people opportunities to try out a role before you make a transition, because the skill set needed for any role is different, right? So whether you're going from purely being engineering and going up the ladder of engineering management versus you take a step in lateral direction and you try program management and see if you enjoy that, which might have more of organizational skills, more communication skills, slightly different. So if you have the opportunity within your environment or company to give it a shot, right, before you make that migration, I would absolutely highly encourage it, because it does take a slightly different skill set. And if you're sure that you really want to do that, then start working on building that skill set, right, as you are making that migration, and give it a shot. I feel that I tried a lot of different jobs before I landed into product management. I tried technical program management, which is like, something where you're working with engineering teams. You're not really necessarily coding or working, but you're doing the Scrum Master, you're doing the Agile development, and you're helping manage the team. I tried sales. I tried, like, you name it. I tried everything before I landed in product management, and I loved it. So if you have a good mentor and you can discuss with them, what are your skill sets? What do you bring to the table, or what do you enjoy doing? All of that have to be put into the thought process, and then you give it a try. I think that if you believe you want to do something, give it a shot, see if you like it. And if you do, absolutely take the jump. If you don't, then move back to what you were doing and maybe try something else. So don't hesitate in trying. It's okay to zigzag and build your experiences and learn from those. Every experience may not be the right fit, but you will learn along the way about yourself and about what you bring to the table.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better. I feel like Surbhi's covered everything that I would have said.
Okay, awesome. So Surbhi, you actually mentioned about the mentors. Someone asked a very specific question to you about mentors. So at times the mentors are not always what you're looking for, and your path could be limited by the ability of that mentor. So have you ever experienced this? Maybe some thoughts as to what happens when this may occur. The question mentions maybe having your outlook open and using your mentor just from a learning perspective would help. If you have any additional thoughts, we'd love to hear them.
I think this is something Sukrutha talked about, right? That at some point in your journey, you may find that somebody is bringing value. But then as you grow or as you move in a different direction, you may realize that this mentor is not able to support the needs you have maybe after a couple of years or some, delta of time. And at that point, it might be a good idea to seek out other mentors. However, always remain like, have some gratitude towards whatever they gave you during some part of your life. And if you can continue to give them updates just so they can enjoy your success and your achievements as well, do that. But in life, you will see that at different points, like Sukrutha said, I'll quote you, Sukrutha, that, when you're younger, it's your parents, and that at some point you realize your dreams and aspirations might be different from how they think or how they want you to be. And at that point, you'll seek out somebody else. At work, it could be a professor, it could be a teacher. And then you may surpass them and say, okay, my teacher is a high school teacher or a grad school teacher, and I'm thinking beyond. I'm thinking of entrepreneurship. So maybe I need to find a mentor who has done their startups. And so at different stages in life, you will look for different mentors. And so, be open to give that feedback to the mentor too, that, I really appreciate what you shared with me, what you have done. And I am going to be, seeking out other mentors because I want to be going in that direction. But I'll continue to be in touch. Be transparent. Don't leave people hanging. It's okay. There are I have, mentored people who have left big companies, which is where I have been, and went on to start their companies. And at that point, I know that they're seeking a different kind of role model or different kind of mentor, and that's okay. If they share with me in a very open fashion, I would celebrate their success and their achievements and their career paths that they have chosen. And I have tried to do the same. When I was at Google, I had a set of mentors that were more focused on consumer products. And now that I'm back into being more enterprise focused, I don't necessarily need to have those conversations, but, I will drop them a line and, just share with them how are they doing, how am I doing, something like, just keep in touch. Don't break your connections. It's good to continue to keep your network strong. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Hope that answers the question.
That was very comprehensive, and thank you for tying in what Sukrutha had mentioned as well with that answer. Before we move into later career stage and charting, I did get one more question about what we could do to make the most out of college to make us better placed as candidates. And this is one of my personal favorite things to talk about, or maybe it was an excuse at the time, but back in college, I always used to say, on your resume, your GPA is 3 characters. The rest of your page will be empty if you're not doing things outside of those classes. And those are the things, in my opinion, that set these internship candidates apart. Because at the end of the day, if all you have on that resume is that 4.00, but nothing else on the entire page is literally blank, then there's not much to put there. Things that I did to help set myself apart was to join different societies, different engineering groups. Personally, I was in the bioinformatics major at UCSD, so I was part of bioinformatics organizations. I was in leadership positions in them. I joined research labs to see if that was a good fit for my career path. I joined TA experiences, teaching assistant experiences. I tried to keep my experience as varied as possible so that a lot of times in interview situations when questions were asked, I had experience that could speak to a lot of those different things. I had experience kind of poising myself in a manner that maybe helped me stand out in front of other applicants just from this very vast, diverse type of experience. Because at the end of the day, college is a time to try things out. There's no one that's expecting you to have 9 years of experience in anything by that point in time. So you might as well try out what works for you and something that, again, has low consequences. And I'd love to hear you guys' Sukrutha and Surbhi's experiences with that as well.
I will let Sukrutha go first. She's closer to college than I am. You guys have more recent experiences there.
Oh my gosh, it's still been a very, very, very long time. I mean, I think similar to what I've said before, and what you just said, Shreya, do more than what is expected of you, because that's just going to be your life and your career going forward. When someone says finish up this project in 2 hours, maybe the goal shouldn't be to just finish it in 1 hour and do nothing else, right? I mean, there's so many other things. I feel like an individual's success cannot be based on, one unique identifier. We're all multifaceted, so you want to exercise all those other aspects of yourself. So I had a goal at one point that I should always have three things going on at any given point that are equally important. So, for example, before my daughter, I was a triathlete. I was training for triathlons. I was running Girl Geek X, which in itself, can be considered a full-time job, and I had my job. So of course now with a child, they don't stop at that 30% time used up of yours. They define how much they take, and that scale is sliding. So that's different when you have personal changes in your life, but still you should always try to at least have more than one thing going for you and not be defined by one thing. It's a very, very, because we happen to have three women here. I do want to say I read several articles about how in my parents' generation, when women were full-time parents, they felt unfulfilled because they didn't have something else going on. But then in my generation, women still feel unfulfilled. It's probably because they give their entire focus to their work. So we need to, any human being, man or woman, needs to feel fulfilled. And just one thing never fills your cup.
Yeah, definitely agree. The balance is very necessary there. Surbhi, do you have anything to add?
No, I think at the point that I'm in my career, I feel that I wish, and this is what I would have done differently. I wish when I was, going through schooling, I was thinking more about, what is it that I enjoy, right? At that point, I did not have that focus. So every class that I went into, my focus was to learn this, get a good grade and be done. And I did not think about, as I'm going through this journey, let me take a step back. Like if I'm taking a class in networking, if I am taking a class in programming, this is a great time when you can try so many different things and start getting a pulse of what is it that you enjoy doing, right? I had to spend a lot of time post my education years to invest and try different things till I had clarity of what I enjoy doing. And I wish I could have done a little more of that in school through not just coursework, but doing other things, taking some humanities classes, some art classes. I never gave myself the opportunity to do any of that. And so I did all of that much later in my life. I went and did art classes, I did music lessons. So everything that I wanted to do, I did it later. But schooling is such a fun time when you have the luxury to do all that. So, take advantage of that. Don't just be like, just focused on education and getting good grades. That is important, but it has its place. There are other things that we should explore, ourselves during schooling years. Yeah. And I give that advice to my kids too. I'm not just saying it like this, not just lip service. I tell my kids, it's okay to think of grades, but that's a small part of the equation. I want you to try as many different things as you can. My son is just starting college, and I told him, think of what all you would enjoy learning. Don't just think of, what is the career, what is the, grad degree I want. Take your time. It's okay.
I love that sentiment. Just in the interest of time, we are starting to head towards the end of this event. I'm going to start moving towards a later career point of time. So do you have any advice on coming up with a 3, 10, 15 plus year career plan, strategy, and execution?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question. Do I have a plan?
3, 5, or 10-year career plan. Just as you chart your progress, chart what you want to see yourself at in 10 years or however many years. How do you plan that? How do you strategize that?
Actually, I do make that kind of planning. I do. Early on in my career, I was not as mindful and thoughtful because when you're younger, you have a different perception, right, of the world. And as I went through, like I said, zigzag through my career, I started creating that, charting out that, what all do I want on my resume? Where do I want to see myself? What role, what kind of skill set, what kind of responsibility in a company. If I want to be in a large company, do I want to be in a startup? And that comes with understanding your own nature as well, right? How much of how should I say, there is a factor of unknown in a startup. How much of that can you can your psyche handle? So as you think through your own self, there are a lot of tools online that you can get that can help you understand what your true essence is. And of course, talking to mentors and colleagues. And then you chart out your plan according to that. So I always give myself a short-term and a long-term goal that helps give me clarity as I pick up these other additional things that I was talking about. For example, the AIML forum that I run for my alumni association, it's because of my personal interest in machine learning and also thinking that in a few years, where do I want to be? I do want to be doing something or leading products that incorporate a lot of AI and ML. So I'm doing that on the side to not just build my skill set, but also advise other companies and other smaller teams as I'm building my own skill set. So I would say having a 3 to 5 year plan is absolutely useful. And so that helps you think through every day as you're making decisions. Am I working towards that goal? And write things down. I absolutely am a big believer in writing, journaling your thought process as you're going through your, not just your career, but also your personal life, because then you look back and reflect and you build that focus and clarity for your life.
That's awesome. Sukrutha, do you have anything to add to that?
I think I used to think when you have to have this like 3, 5, 10-year plan, like you needed to know exactly which company, where you needed to be. So that didn't really work very well for me. I instead, turned it around to what sort of skills do I want by this time? And what do I need to do now in order to get those skills? And that's helped me a little bit better. It works better for my style because I felt like I was sort of boxing myself into what I said earlier, right? Like what I thought this is the kind of company I needed to work at. And, you don't want to stay in that same situation just because you got your supposed dream job now. So that's the distinction I like to draw.
Okay, awesome. I know my personal experience, at least when I have just a 2-year plan or just here's the next step up in terms of strategizing and bringing myself to that step up, it's often, like Surbhi said, write stuff down, right? So I will write down a list of the skills that I need, a list of things that I need to be true about myself before I make it to that next rank. So every 3 to 6 months, it's like a check-in process of, did I bring myself closer in those 3 months to where I want to be? That's kind of how personally I try to make sure I'm always moving forward and not getting stagnant. In terms of a longer staged plan, like you guys already mentioned, there is thinking about it and going about it. And again, in the interest of time, let's talk about a maybe later stage question. What do you think an engineering manager could or should do to get to the executive ranks? So this kind of puts us a little bit further out.
Go ahead, Sukrutha, you're the engineering manager here.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not a exec, but I mean, I think one of the things that I'm learning or I've been like trying to do more of is, being organizationally smart. You can't grow in your career if you don't know who's in what position and, where to leverage them. That's something no one teaches you. Knowing where you fit in the org chart. And then like, if these are the projects you want to ultimately be responsible for, to get to that level, like since I was a new manager to now, like my number of projects I'm responsible for have gone up 5 times because I've been deliberate about these are the areas I want to be responsible for. And I worked early on the skills that I thought I needed. Back in the day, you needed an MBA to be an exec, and now we see so many examples where you don't, but I didn't want to miss out on getting the skills that one would get. So I've been doing so much reading, talking to several people who actually did do their MBA and they did think that certain things helped them. I didn't, get that, and I don't want to make time for it right now in the situation that I would like to be in. And so instead I'm trying to, gain those skills. I'm also working on gaining the soft skills. I get a lot of that through my work through Girl Geek. I get a lot of exposure to other exec women. And that's something that's helped me. As a result, I don't get nervous talking to execs. I don't feel like, oh, I'm like these many years junior and I can't make my point heard. And so, when everybody knows your opinion, when opportunities open up, they pull you in because they think, she'll be a good fit for this because she has thoughts and ideas and has proven execution. So, yeah. Surbhi, I'd love to hear your story.
Sorry, I'm so sorry, but can you repeat the question, Shreya? I was busy reading the questions on chat to see if we should address anything.
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, the question originally was to talk about going from the stage of an engineering manager to the executive ranks, what you can do to kind of bring yourself up to that position if that's where you're trying to go.
I think some of the things Sukrutha said jive with me there as well, that do not hesitate, right, to have conversations, to meet people. I think one thing that really helped me was also, taking on more challenging things that are like out there. As your engineering manager, there's a box in which your role has been defined, but there's also other problems that exist in the company that are harder problems or more mucky problems which nobody owns. There is no clear ownership but need to be done. And I feel that is where we bring a lot of value to the organization as well as our own careers, to pick up some of those and go and have conversations with leadership to talk about, see if they have any thoughts and ideas. And a lot of times you will realize that they're aware of it and they appreciate that somebody is thinking through it, bringing it up and trying to solve it. Because sometimes there is just lack of time or lack of the right skill set to address those. And these are more of the cross-functional challenges that, in any large or mid-sized company, you'll see that. In smaller companies, you're wearing so many different hats that, you might end up owning it. In slightly larger companies, it's more of a cross-functional effort, whether it's to solve like, a gross margin kind of issue, which is across all your products, which no one single person owns. And if you think of taking on that problem and start having conversations, just that thoughtfulness and that awareness will make leadership see you stand out as, a differentiated leader, and even give you the opportunity just to, hey, take X number of headcount and see if you can solve this. So just taking on more interesting, more challenging things that everybody else might be shying away from. And I think Piyush is giving us an indication that we need to be wrapping this up.
I think this could go on forever, but there are certain questions which the audience has come up with. I really appreciate that. So, Shreya, if you want to end with your last question, or can we go to everybody starting to say one sentence in a tweetable moment that you want to share with the audience? Rapid fire.
Sure. So in honor of the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I'm sure you've all heard the news. A quote that I've seen recently floating around is, fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you, which is something I really enjoyed and resonated with and think could be applied to careers in tech as well.
Yeah.
Time se आना जल्दी आना बल्कि अच्छा please यार
Somebody might want to mute.
Yeah, someone needs to mute themselves.
I would say the same thing I have been saying through my conversation today, is like, don't be afraid to take chances. Try out different things. It's important we figure out where we want to be long term. So taking short term, different paths to get an understanding of where we want to go is important. Discovering yourself, discovering your skill set through mentors, mentees, taking on interesting challenges within the company. Do that. Don't be afraid. Give it a shot.
Right.
Huh. All right. I think we are nearing the end, but before we end, I will launch the poll. There's one more question that I would say we would need to get from all of you here. Please answer this in the next 30 seconds while I try to wrap this thing up. Kindly look at your screen and click there. And I would like everybody to be interactive here. 5 people have answered. I would like at least 10 before I move on. All right. So while you are looking at this poll, I would say the key takeaways from this session for me, if I was to distill it, one, mentorship is a two-way street, and B, if you can get to a personal board of directors as mentors in the industry, both within the company that you work for as well as outside, that's great. And being an entrepreneurial thinker is important. And as they say, if you want to go further, you've got to take people along with you, not alienate them. And this is a certain degree of soft skills that we need to earn in the market, and we've got to display in our organizations. And this applies to whether you are in a smaller company or a large organization, or you're an entrepreneur. These things come handy. So with that, I think most of you have answered. So I'll share the results here. And you can see on your screen that most of you love it. And 3 of you are willing to help ASEI as well. That's great. Please get in touch with me. I'm easily available on LinkedIn. My email address is piyushventures@gmail.com, and we'll take it from there. And I will want to now also point out that there are other events. Next Saturday, we have our event coming up. It's on your screen, Business Continuity During the Pandemic. And let's also not forget that our national convention is coming up December 5th and 6th. So stay tuned for the program announcements. They'll be in your inbox. And just want to remind, if you're not an ASEI member, I run the ASEI Silicon Valley chapter. We focus on a lot of things for the young and budding engineers, but we're always looking for corporate connections. And if you want to serve on the board or you want to be a volunteer, please be in touch. So with that, I would like to thank all the speakers today, more specifically Surbhi, who despite her busyness and a lot of things that she's involved with, she agreed to be here. Sukrutha, you run amazing Girl Geek X organization, and of course you have a family, small baby to take care of. So appreciate you coming here on a Saturday morning. And Shreya, thanks for agreeing to take the mentorship, take the moderating job as well, which is key. I want to encourage more and more young budding engineers to come and join ASEI and join forces with us. So with that, thank you all for joining. And until the next time, take care. Be safe. Bye all. Take care.